the mooncatcher's last light. Opening, the girl who caught the moon. Long ago, before the stars had names and the tides knew when to rise, there was a girl who could catch the moon. Her name was Solène, and she lived in a world where the night sky was always shifting, the moon never staying in one place for too long. Some nights it was a sliver of silver, others a golden coin. But one thing was certain. Without someone to catch it, the moon would fade entirely, lost forever. And so, Solène had a task unlike any other. She was the last mooncatcher. Each night, she climbed the highest peaks, sailed the farthest seas, or leapt from cloud to cloud, reaching for the moon before it could disappear. But one night, when the sky was dark and empty, the moon did not return. And Solène knew she had failed. The sky without a moon. For the first time, the world slept in utter darkness. The tides grew restless, the wolves howled in confusion, and the people whispered of lost dreams, as if something deep inside them had vanished along with the light. Solène climbed to the highest peak, searching. She flew with the wind, calling to the moon. Nothing. Then, from the depths of the sky, a voice murmured, soft as drifting snow, heavy as time itself. "Why do you chase me, child?" Solène's breath caught. "Because you belong here." A pause. Then. "Do I?" The moon's secret. From the shadows of the heavens, something began to take shape, a light so faint, it was barely there. And in its glow, Solène saw the truth. The moon was tired. For eons, it had risen and fallen, pulled the tides, lit the way for lost travelers. It had been caught, held, and returned over and over. But no one had ever asked if it wished to stay. Solène's chest tightened. "But without you, the world will learn," the moon whispered. "To find its own light." And for the first time in her life, Solène hesitated. If she reached for the moon now, if she caught it once more, it would remain. The world would be as it had always been. But if she let go, the world would have to change. The last catch. Solène stretched out her hand. Then closed it into a fist. She would not hold on. She would set it free. The moment she did, the sky shifted. Not into emptiness, but into something new. The stars, once dim beside the moon's glow, began to shine. The ocean, once following only the moon's pull, discovered its own rhythm. And the people, once looking only upward for light, found it in themselves. The moon smiled. And drifted into the night, not lost. But finally, at rest. The night shines on. Solène stood on the peak, watching the new sky unfold. She was no longer a mooncatcher. She was something else now. Something free. And far above, in a sky full of stars, the moon whispered its gratitude. Not for being caught, but for being released. The Watchmaker's Garden. Opening, the garden that kept time. In a quiet town where the clocks never chimed at the same hour and the wind carried the scent of old stories, there was a garden hidden behind iron gates. It did not bloom like other gardens. There were no roses or ivy, no vines twisting toward the sun. Instead, the garden was filled with time. Hanging from the branches of ancient trees were pocket watches and grandfather clock pendulums, their golden chains swaying like fruit in the breeze. Beneath the roots, hourglasses turned of their own accord, sand slipping through them in rhythm with the wind. And at the very center, tending to them all, was the watchmaker. She was neither young nor old, neither known nor forgotten. She did not fix clocks, nor did she sell them. She simply kept time where it belonged. The boy who had no time. One afternoon, beneath a sky bruised with the colors of an oncoming storm, a boy named Jude stumbled upon the iron gates. He had never seen them before, yet they looked as though they had been standing there for centuries. His heart ached with the weight of unfinished things. He was always running out of time, late for school, behind on promises, never able to catch up with the world around him. So when the gates creaked open on their own, he stepped inside. And time paused. The keeper of the garden. Jude walked among the trees, his breath catching as the watches ticked gently overhead, their hands moving at different speeds, some fast, some slow, some barely moving at all. At the garden center, the watchmaker stood beside a massive clock with no hands. She glanced up. You carry too many hours on your shoulders. Jude frowned. I don't have enough time. The watchmaker tilted her head. Are you certain? With a wave of her hand, a small silver watch appeared in the air. Its face was blank. This, she said, is your time. You are the only one who can set it. Jude hesitated. I don't understand. Most people do not, the watchmaker replied. They chase time. Fear it. Waste it. But time is not something to run after, it is something you must choose to hold. She handed him the watch, and as soon as his fingers curled around it, the garden shifted. The time that was his. The ticking of the clocks grew louder. The pendulums swayed like metronomes. And all around him, Jude saw moments. Moments he had rushed through. Moments he had ignored. Moments he had spent worrying about tomorrow instead of living in today. They flickered before him like golden fireflies, waiting to be noticed. What do I do? He whispered. The watchmaker smiled. You set your own time. No one else can. Jude looked down at the blank watch in his hands. For the first time in his life, he did not feel out of time. He felt in control of it. Slowly, he turned the winding key. And the watch began to tick. The garden that remains. When Jude left the garden, the world felt different. Not slower. Not faster. Just his. The iron gate stood behind him, locked once more, the garden hidden from view. He did not know if he would ever find it again. But he no longer needed to. Because time had never been chasing him. He had always been holding it in his own hands. And now, he was ready to use it. The train to nowhere. Opening, the station that didn't exist. There are stations that appear on no maps. Tucked between the spaces of forgotten roads and half-remembered dreams, there was a platform where no one arrived, and no one departed. It was simply called Nowhere Station. No train schedules were posted, no tickets were sold. Yet, on the nights when the mist curled low and the stars flickered like candlelight, a train would arrive. A train that took passengers to where they were meant to be. And one evening, Oliver found himself standing on its platform. With no memory of how he got there. The conductor's invitation. The train was waiting, steam curling in ghostly shapes, its windows dark as the sky above. A single lantern glowed beside the entrance, where a tall figure in a coat stitched from twilight stood. The conductor. He tipped his hat. A traveler without a destination. Oliver hesitated. Where does the train go? The conductor gave a slow smile. Where do you need it to go? Oliver's breath hitched. He had spent his whole life searching for a place that felt like his. A place where he belonged. But every time he thought he had found it, he lost it again. I don't know, he admitted. The conductor extended a gloved hand. Then ride until you do. The train of wandering souls. Oliver stepped aboard, and the train sighed as if it had been waiting for him all along. Inside, the corridors stretched farther than they should, lined with doors that whispered when he passed. Some doors were locked, others slightly open, revealing glimpses of places that almost felt familiar. A quiet town where laughter echoed down sunlit streets. A city where neon lights flickered against rain-slicked pavement. A home he had once known, but could no longer remember. Each door, the conductor explained, is a life you could have lived. A path you might have taken. But only one will take you forward. Oliver's fingers brushed against a brass doorknob. What happens if I choose wrong? The conductor chuckled. There are no wrong doors. Only the ones you aren't ready for. The door that opened. Oliver walked past doors that called to him, past the ones that whispered of past regrets and roads not taken. Then, at the very end of the train, he found it. A door that was neither old nor new, neither familiar nor strange. Just waiting. With a deep breath, he turned the handle. Light flooded his vision. Not bright, not blinding. Warm. Like stepping into the first chapter of a story he hadn't yet written. The station that disappears. The train hissed to a stop, but when Oliver looked out the window, there was no station. No tracks. No misty platform. Only a path ahead, waiting to be walked. The conductor tipped his hat once more. "You've arrived." Oliver stepped off the train and into his own life. Behind him, the train to nowhere side, its wheels beginning to turn once more, its lantern flickering in the dark. Waiting for the next lost traveler searching for the door that would lead them home. The Library of Unfinished Stories. Opening, the place where stories wait. Deep within the heart of the city, where the streets tangled like old ink on parchment, there was a library that did not appear on any map. It stood between two forgotten buildings, its entrance hidden behind a door that only opened for those who needed it. It was called the Library of Unfinished Stories. No one knew who built it, or how long it had existed. The shelves stretched beyond sight, filled with books that had no endings, stories abandoned by their writers, tales that had once burned bright but faded before they could be finished. And at the very center of the library sat the keeper. Her job was not to write the endings, only to wait for the ones who would. The girl who couldn't finish. One evening, beneath a sky heavy with ink-dark clouds, Clara found the library. She had not been looking for it. Or maybe she had been, without realizing it. She had always loved stories. Loved starting them, dreaming them up, letting them bloom in the quiet corners of her mind. But she could never finish them. And now, she stood before a door that shouldn't exist, a brass handle cool beneath her fingers. When she stepped inside, the world changed. A library of endless possibilities. The air smelled of old parchment and forgotten dreams. Shelves towered toward a ceiling that vanished into mist, filled with books of every shape and size. Some glowed softly, others pulsed like beating hearts, and a few flickered in and out of sight, as if they were on the verge of disappearing. And at the very center, behind a desk made of bound pages, sat the keeper. She was neither young nor old, her eyes deep as unwritten words. She looked up and smiled. "Ah," she murmured. "A writer who is lost." Clara hesitated. "I'm not a writer." The keeper raised an eyebrow. "Aren't you?" She gestured to the nearest shelf. Clara followed her gaze. And gasped. There, sitting among the other books, was one with her name on the spine. The Story That Waited. Clara's fingers trembled as she pulled the book from the shelf. The cover was warm, as if it had been waiting for her touch. She opened it. Inside were her words. The beginnings she had scribbled in notebooks, the paragraphs she had abandoned, the characters she had loved but left behind. All of them were there. But the last pages were blank. "I don't know how to finish it," she whispered. The keeper studied her. "Do you know why people leave their stories unfinished?" Clara shook her head. "Because finishing something means letting it go. And that, my dear, is terrifying." Clara's chest tightened. She thought of all the times she had stopped writing, not because she didn't have ideas, but because she was afraid they would never be good enough if she finished them. "What if the ending isn't right?" she asked. The keeper smiled. "Then you write another. The choice to continue." Clara stared at the blank pages, at the unwritten words waiting to be shaped. She took a deep breath and picked up a pen. The moment the ink touched the paper, the library shifted. The shelves shimmered. The books flickered, as if sighing in relief. And as Clara wrote, the story moved forward, no longer trapped in the in-between. She did not know if the ending would be perfect. But it would be hers. The library that remains. When Clara finally looked up, the keeper was gone. The shelves stretched on, filled with stories still waiting, still hoping to be finished. Clara closed the book with her name on it. It was no longer unfinished. She stepped outside, into the night air, the weight in her chest lighter than before. The library door was gone. But somewhere, hidden between the pages of the world, it still waited. For the next writer ready to turn the page. The Enchanted Dreamscape, a journey beyond the stars. Once upon a time, in a quiet little village nestled between rolling emerald hills, there lived a boy named Elias. He was no ordinary child. From a very young age, he had the most vivid and fantastical dreams, dreams of places no one had ever seen, of creatures that spoke in whispers of forgotten times, and of worlds hidden beyond the stars. While the villagers dismissed his dreams as mere figments of imagination, Elias knew, deep in his heart, that they were something more. One fateful evening, as the sky shimmered with 1,000 golden stars, Elias felt an unusual pull in his chest, a calling, a whisper on the wind that spoke his name. He followed the gentle breeze through the village, past the wheat fields swaying in the moonlight, and into the heart of the forest where an ancient willow tree stood, its gnarled branches reaching towards the heavens. As Elias placed his hand on the tree's bark, a soft glow surrounded him, and the world around him shifted. The stars above swirled like a cosmic dance, and the air hummed with an ethereal melody. Before he could blink, he found himself standing in a place unlike any other, a realm suspended between reality and dream. He had entered the enchanted dreamscape. The dreamscape was a breathtaking expanse of floating islands, shimmering rivers that flowed through the air, and celestial creatures that radiated a gentle glow. Towering above it all was the celestial spire, a beacon of pure light that pulsed with an ancient power. This realm, as Elias soon learned, was where dreams were born and where forgotten stories found a home. As he wandered through this magical world, Elias encountered a peculiar being, a guardian of the dreamscape named Leora. She was a luminous figure with flowing robes woven from the threads of twilight and eyes that held the wisdom of eternity. "You are the chosen one, Elias," she said with a serene smile. "You have been called to restore the balance of dreams. A darkness has begun to seep into this realm, twisting dreams into nightmares, and if it is not stopped, the dreamscape will fade, and with it, the magic of imagination." Determined to help, Elias set off on a grand adventure across the dreamscape. He journeyed through the whispering plains, where flowers sang lullabies to the wind, past the moonlit caverns, where crystals hummed the melodies of lost dreams, and into the heart of shadows, where the source of the growing darkness lay hidden. There, in the depths of the darkness, Elias faced the Dream Devourer, a being born of forgotten fears and despair. The creature sought to consume dreams, leaving nothing but emptiness in its wake. As it loomed over him, whispering doubts and fears, Elias remembered the stories his grandmother had once told him, stories of courage, hope, and the power of belief. Summoning every ounce of light within him, Elias unleashed a brilliant glow, a beacon of pure imagination and wonder. The darkness recoiled, and with one final burst of radiant energy, the Dream Devourer shattered into 1,000 twinkling stars, each one returning to the dreamscape as a newly born dream. With balance restored, Leora appeared once more. "You have done what many believed impossible, Elias. You have saved the world of dreams." As a reward, Elias was gifted with the ability to travel between the dreamscape and the waking world, ensuring that dreams would always remain bright and full of wonder. And so, every night, as the village slept, Elias ventured into the enchanted dreamscape, weaving new stories that would fill the hearts of dreamers across the universe. And thus, his adventure continued, forever among the stars. Celestial Odyssey, the lost realm of starlight. In the quiet town of Evermere, where lanterns flickered like fallen stars and the night sky stretched infinitely beyond the horizon, lived a girl named Avelini. She had always felt a deep connection to the stars, as if they whispered secrets only she could understand. Every evening, she would climb to the highest hill and trace constellations with her fingertips, dreaming of distant worlds beyond the veil of reality. One fateful night, as she gazed up at the cosmos, a single star burned brighter than the rest, pulsing with an otherworldly glow. Before she could react, a streak of silver light descended from the heavens, enveloping her in a swirl of cosmic dust. When the light faded, Avelini found herself standing in an unfamiliar realm, an expanse of floating islands, glimmering waterfalls of liquid light, and celestial beings that moved like living constellations. "Welcome, Dreamwalker," a voice echoed through the void. Avelini turned to see a luminous figure draped in robes woven from the night sky itself. "I am Orion, guardian of the celestial realm. You have been chosen to restore balance to our world." Avelini's heart pounded as Orion led her through the astral landscapes. He explained that the celestial realm was once a sanctuary of harmony, where dreams and imagination thrived. But a terrible force known as the Abyss had begun consuming the starlit lands, devouring dreams and replacing them with endless darkness. Determined to save the realm, Avelini set forth on an odyssey across the celestial expanse. She ventured through the nebula forest, where luminous trees hummed in harmony with the universe. She sailed across the river of light, navigating the tides of stardust with the guidance of a celestial navigator named Solis. At last, she arrived at the abyss's edge, a vast chasm where the stars flickered and faded into nothingness. From the shadows emerged the Void Weaver, a creature formed from fractured dreams and lost hopes. "You do not belong here, child of Earth," it hissed. "The darkness is inevitable." But Avellini refused to surrender. She called upon the power of the stars, channeling their ancient brilliance. With a single burst of radiant energy, she unleashed a wave of light so powerful that the abyss recoiled, shrinking into oblivion. The celestial realm was restored, its skies once more alight with endless wonder. As a final gift, Orion granted Avellini a shard of the celestial core, allowing her to visit the stars whenever she wished. When she awoke back in Evermere, she clutched the glowing fragment close to her heart, knowing that the magic of the celestial realm would always be with her. And so, every night, she continued to gaze up at the sky, not as a dreamer longing for the stars, but as a guardian of their eternal light. The Legend of the Emerald Vale. Deep in the heart of the world, hidden beyond towering mountains and endless golden plains, lay the mystical land of Viridian. It was a realm untouched by time, where nature's beauty flourished in ways unknown to ordinary eyes. Towering trees with emerald leaves swayed in a rhythmic dance with the wind, rivers shimmered like liquid crystal, and glowing fireflies wove intricate patterns in the twilight sky. But among the legends whispered through the ancient groves, one tale stood above all others, the legend of the Emerald Vale. It was said that beyond the Great Falls, hidden within the labyrinthine caverns of the Silverwood Forest, lay an enchanted vale, a bridge between realms. Those who dared cross it would enter the Forgotten Kingdom, a place of eternal wisdom and infinite wonder. Many had searched for it, but none had returned, leaving the legend shrouded in mystery. One evening, under the watchful gaze of a crescent moon, a young explorer named Kala set out to find the vale. With a heart filled with wonder and a map handed down through generations, she ventured into the Silverwood. The deeper she went, the more the forest seemed to whisper, as if guiding her toward her destiny. Strange creatures peeked from the foliage, their eyes gleaming like tiny stars, and the scent of blooming jasmine filled the air with an almost magical essence. After days of navigating the winding forest paths, Kala reached the Great Falls. Water cascaded from unimaginable heights, its mist shimmering with tiny flecks of green light. As she stepped closer, she noticed ancient runes etched into the rocks, pulsating softly, beckoning her forward. With a deep breath, she traced the patterns with her fingers, and the ground beneath her trembled. The air shifted. A brilliant glow erupted before her, and in an instant, she was no longer in the Silverwood. She stood at the threshold of the Forgotten Kingdom. Towering crystalline spires stretched toward an endless twilight sky, where constellations danced in elegant patterns. The air hummed with an unseen melody, and beings of pure light moved gracefully through the streets, their presence radiating an overwhelming sense of peace. Kala took a tentative step forward, and an ethereal figure appeared before her. Draped in flowing robes spun from the threads of dawn and dusk, the figure smiled. "You have found the Emerald Vale, seeker of truth. Few are granted this passage, and fewer still understand its purpose." Kala's heart pounded with excitement. "What is this place?" she asked. "This is the realm where forgotten dreams and lost wisdom reside. Only those who seek knowledge with a pure heart may walk its halls." As she wandered the kingdom, Kala beheld sights beyond imagination, gardens suspended in the sky, waterfalls that flowed upward into the stars, and libraries where books whispered their secrets to those who listened. Time lost meaning as she delved deeper into the wonders before her. But as all great adventures must, her journey reached its turning point. The guardian of the veil approached once more. "You have seen, you have learned. Now, you must return." Kala felt a pang of sorrow, but she understood. With a final bow, she stepped through the glowing portal once more, feeling the gentle embrace of the wind as she emerged back into the Silverwood. The Great Falls roared in the distance, unchanged, yet something within her had shifted. She carried the wisdom of the Forgotten Kingdom within her heart. From that day on, Kala became a storyteller, sharing the legend of the Emerald Vale with all who would listen. Though many doubted, and others scoffed, some saw the truth in her words. And perhaps, just perhaps, the veil would one day call another seeker to its enchanted realm. The Moonlight Tide, a saga of the eternal sea. Far beyond the known world, past the endless horizon where the sky meets the sea, lay an ocean untouched by time, the eternal sea. Legend spoke of its silver tides, which glowed under the moon's embrace, and the mysterious island hidden within its depths. Few had dared to cross its waters, and even fewer had returned to tell their tale. Among those who dreamed of the fabled island was a young sailor named Ronan. He had grown up listening to stories of the Moonlight Tide, a celestial current that appeared only once every 100 years. It was said to be the key to reaching the heart of the Eternal Sea, where a great secret lay hidden. As the rare celestial event drew near, Ronan knew this was his only chance to uncover the truth. On the night of the Moonlight Tide's arrival, Ronan set sail on his small but sturdy vessel, the Starborn. The sea shimmered under the silver glow of the full moon, and the waves moved in an unnatural rhythm, as if guiding him toward his destiny. The wind whispered ancient songs, and the constellations above shifted into unfamiliar patterns. He was no longer in the world he knew, he had entered the realm of the Eternal Sea. Days turned into nights, and time lost all meaning as Ronan ventured deeper into the mystical ocean. He encountered glowing sea creatures that sang melodies in a forgotten language, and towering coral formations that pulsed with a light of their own. But the true test awaited him in the heart of the sea, where the guardian of the Moonlight Tide resided. As Ronan approached the sacred waters, the sea stilled, and from beneath the waves emerged a being unlike any other, a spirit woven from the essence of the ocean and the stars above. The guardian's voice resonated like the deep hum of the tides. You seek the heart of the Eternal Sea, but only those who understand its true nature may proceed. Ronan hesitated. He had always believed the journey was about discovery, about finding what no one else had seen. But now, standing before the guardian, he realized the truth: the Eternal Sea was not meant to be conquered, but understood. The island he sought was not a place, but a state of being, a connection between the wanderer and the sea itself. With newfound clarity, Ronan let go of his longing to reach the island and instead embraced the mystery of the ocean. The Moonlight Tide surged around him, and for the first time, he felt truly at one with the sea. The guardian smiled, and the silver waves carried him back toward the waking world. When Ronan awoke, he was back on the shores of his homeland, his ship intact, but the silver glow of the Eternal Sea still lingering on his skin. He knew he would never again search for the island, for he had already found what he was looking for. And so, the legend of the Moonlight Tide lived on, whispered among sailors who gazed at the horizon, wondering if they too would one day hear the call of the Eternal Sea. Echoes of Elysium, the Forgotten Realm. Beneath the shifting veils of twilight, hidden between the folds of time itself, lay a world untouched by mortal hands, the lost realm of Elysium. It was whispered that those who listened closely to the wind could hear its echoes, a distant call from an age-long past. The legend told of a portal that appeared only once every 1,000 years, woven from the fabric of the dying sun's last golden rays. Those who crossed its threshold would find themselves in Elysium, a place where history's forgotten dreams slumbered, waiting to awaken once more. Ilara had spent her life chasing whispers of the portal's return. A scholar of ancient myths, she had deciphered cryptic texts that spoke of a night when the constellations would align, unlocking the gate between worlds. And that night had come. With only a lantern and a heart full of resolve, she journeyed deep into the Valley of Echoes, where ruins of civilizations long lost crumbled beneath the weight of time. The air shimmered, charged with an unseen force. And then, before her, it appeared, a gateway of light, pulsing like the heartbeat of the universe itself. Steeling herself, Ilara stepped forward, and the world dissolved around her. She found herself in a land of eternal dusk, where rivers flowed with liquid stardust and colossal trees bore luminescent fruits. Towers of obsidian and glass reached toward the heavens, whispering forgotten knowledge into the wind. Elysium was real. Yet, she was not alone. From the shadows emerged the Keepers, ethereal beings of light and mist, their forms shifting like the tides of time. They watched her with eyes that held the weight of eternity. "You have come seeking answers," one spoke, its voice like 1,000 echoes layered atop one another. "But knowledge comes at a cost." Ilara knelt before them. "I do not seek to take, only to understand." The Keepers conferred in a silent communion before extending their hands toward her. In an instant, visions surged through her mind, glimpses of empires lost to time, of secrets buried beneath the sands of history, of the ebb and flow of civilizations forgotten by all but Elysium itself. Tears streamed down her face as she absorbed the knowledge, feeling the weight of the past settle upon her shoulders. When the visions faded, the Keepers spoke once more. "You must return. The knowledge you carry will shape the future. Elysium must remain hidden, lest the greed of men taint its purity." Ilara hesitated, her heart torn between wonder and duty. But she understood. With one final glance at the magnificent realm, she stepped back through the portal. The world of men welcomed her once more, the ruins of the Valley of Echoes standing silent in the moonlight. Though the portal was gone, Elysium lived on in her heart, its echoes whispering through time, waiting for the next seeker to listen. The Serpent of Stardust, a celestial voyage. Beyond the last known constellation, past the celestial boundary where mortal eyes could no longer see, drifted a realm untouched by time, the Australis Expanse. It was said to be the birthplace of stars, where cosmic rivers flowed like liquid gold and the very fabric of the universe hummed with ancient songs. Yet, at the heart of this wondrous expanse, an enigma lay hidden, the Serpent of Stardust. Legends whispered that the serpent was neither beast nor deity, but something in between, a guardian of cosmic balance, its body woven from the dust of dying stars. It was seen only once in a millennium, when the constellations realigned to form the Key of Orion. Those who sought it craved its knowledge, for the serpent was said to whisper the secrets of existence to those deemed worthy. Among those seekers was Cashin, a navigator of the void and an explorer with a soul tethered to the stars. He had spent his life tracing the myths of the serpent, and on the eve of the celestial realignment, he stood at the helm of his vessel, the Eclipse Wing, ready to embark on the greatest voyage of his life. With the ship's ethereal sails catching the solar winds, Cashin ventured deeper into the unknown. Nebulae swirled in luminous clouds, asteroids floated like forgotten relics, and ancient planetary ruins drifted through the darkness. Time was meaningless here, only the pulse of the cosmos guided him forward. Then, at the appointed hour, the Key of Orion blazed in the sky, its radiant form unlocking a path unseen. The space before him shimmered, bending reality itself, and from the void emerged the serpent. It was unlike anything Cashin had ever imagined, a being of shifting light and shadow, its long form undulating like the currents of the great cosmic sea. Its scales were not scales at all, but fragments of galaxies swirling within its celestial skin. Eyes like twin supernovas bore into Cashin's soul, measuring the weight of his heart. Seeker, the serpent's voice resonated, both a whisper and a thunderclap. You have come far. Tell me, why do you seek the knowledge of the stars? Cashin hesitated. He had spent his life chasing legends, yearning for discovery. But standing before the guardian of creation itself, he realized knowledge was not his true pursuit, understanding was. I seek not to own wisdom, but to witness it, he said at last. To see the cosmos as it was meant to be seen. The serpent's great coils shifted, the galaxies within them glowing ever brighter. Then you shall not leave empty-handed. With a flick of its celestial tail, the serpent unraveled a single strand of stardust and let it drift toward Cashin. As it touched his fingertips, visions flooded his mind, worlds yet to be born, the echoes of forgotten civilizations, and the infinite tapestry of existence, woven in threads of light and shadow. When the visions faded, he found himself back aboard the Eclipse Wing, the serpent's form dissolving into the vastness once more. But something within him had changed. He no longer sought to conquer the unknown, he sought to be a part of it. As he set course for home, the stars no longer seemed like distant flames in the dark. They were stories, waiting to be heard, and Cashin would spend the rest of his life listening. The Whispering Sands, a desert secret. In the heart of the endless dunes, where the sands shimmered like liquid gold under the blazing sun, lay a place few dared to tread, the Whispering Sands. It was said that the desert itself spoke in hushed murmurs, telling tales of ancient secrets buried beneath the shifting dunes. Some claimed it was merely the wind playing tricks, but those who listened closely knew better. Among those who believed was Amara, a young traveler who had spent her life studying forgotten legends. She had scoured ancient scrolls and deciphered cryptic maps, all pointing to one thing, the lost city of Solara, said to be hidden beneath the very sands that whispered their secrets. Determined, she set out on a journey few had dared to attempt. For days, Amara traveled across the scorching expanse, guided only by the stars and the cryptic verses she had memorized. She encountered mirages of glistening palaces, illusions meant to lead seekers astray. But she pressed on, her heart unwavering, until she reached the heart of the desert where the whispers grew louder. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the dunes, the wind shifted, carrying with it an ancient melody. The sands beneath her feet began to swirl, revealing a staircase descending into darkness. Amara took a deep breath and stepped forward. She found herself in an underground city, its golden towers bathed in the glow of thousands of floating lanterns. The streets were lined with carvings depicting a civilization lost to time, and at the center stood a grand temple. As she approached, a figure emerged, a guardian cloaked in flowing robes, their eyes glowing like embers. "You have heard the whispers," the guardian spoke. "And so, you have been chosen." Amara listened as the guardian recounted the fate of Solara, a city once thriving, its people attuned to the song of the sands. But greed had led to their downfall, and the desert had swallowed them whole, preserving their wisdom for one who would listen with an open heart. "You must decide," the guardian said. "Take the knowledge you have found, or stay and become part of the legend." Amara hesitated. The answer she had sought her entire life lay before her, but so did the opportunity to keep the city's magic alive. In the end, she chose both, carrying the wisdom of Solara back to the world, while ensuring its story would never be lost to the sands. As she emerged from the depths, the entrance sealed behind her, and the desert grew silent once more. But in the wind, the whispers remained, waiting for the next traveler who dared to listen. The Crimson Moon Ritual. In a forgotten valley veiled by eternal mist, nestled between jagged mountains and whispering forests, lay the village of Eldros. The villagers lived in harmony with nature, tending their fields and sharing stories of old. But among the many legends that shaped their lives, one stood above all others, the tale of the Crimson Moon. Once every century, when the moon bled red against the night sky, the veil between worlds grew thin, and the spirits of the lost walked among the living. It was said that during this night, one chosen soul could cross into the realm of the ancients and seek answers that could alter fate itself. No one in Eldros had dared take on the ritual in over 500 years. That is, until a girl named Lyra stepped forward. Lyra had spent her life chasing shadows of the past. She had read the forbidden texts, studied the constellations, and pieced together the fragments of the ritual long forgotten. With the village elders watching in silence, she knelt before the altar at the heart of the valley, the red moon illuminating the carved runes beneath her hands. The wind howled as she whispered the incantation. The air thickened with unseen energy, and the trees bent as if bowing to an unseen force. Slowly, the mist parted, revealing a shimmering portal, a gateway to the realm beyond. Heart-pounding, Lyra stepped through. She found herself in a place where time held no dominion. Ethereal beings drifted between the ruins of a lost civilization, their luminous forms flickering like candle flames. A grand temple stood at the heart of this spectral world, its doors adorned with symbols that pulsed with an eerie glow. Inside, a figure awaited her, a woman wrapped in flowing silver robes, her eyes swirling with galaxies. "You seek the truth," the woman murmured, her voice echoing as if carried by the wind itself. Lyra nodded. "I seek the knowledge to save my people." The woman extended her hand, and visions erupted in Lyra's mind, glimpses of forgotten histories, the rise and fall of empires, and the delicate balance that bound all realms together. The Crimson Moon was not a curse, nor a warning, it was a bridge, a fleeting moment where destiny could be rewritten. As the vision faded, Lyra felt herself being pulled back. The spirit smiled. "You now hold the power to shape your world. Use it wisely." She gasped as she awoke, back at the altar, the portal gone and the villagers staring in stunned silence. But she was no longer the girl they knew. The knowledge of the ancients burned within her, and the fate of Eldros had shifted forever. The Crimson Moon had spoken. The Grand Adventure of Milo the Mischievous Fox. Milo was not your ordinary fox. While most foxes were content sneaking through the woods for food, Milo had bigger dreams. He wanted adventure, excitement, and most of all, treasure. Not just any treasure, but the legendary golden acorn said to be hidden deep within the enchanted forest. One crisp autumn morning, Milo set off on his grand quest, tail swishing with excitement. He had a map, well, sort of. It was an old napkin with a bunch of scribbles he borrowed, without permission, from the wise old owl, Professor Hoots. The professor had muttered something about nonsense and bedtime stories, but Milo knew better. If there was a legend, then there had to be treasure. His journey started smoothly, until he reached the Sassy River. The only way across was the Riddle Bridge, guarded by the grumpy toad, Sir Croaksworth. "Halt!" Sir Croaksworth bellowed. "You must answer my riddle to pass." Milo grinned. "Hit me with your best shot, Croaksy." The toad cleared his throat. "I have cities but no houses, forests but no trees, and rivers but no water. What am I?" Milo's ears twitched. He tapped his paw against his chin. Oh. A map. Sir Croaksworth blinked. Huh. Lucky guess. Fine, you may pass. With a victorious skip, Milo trotted across the bridge and into the heart of the enchanted forest, where trouble and adventure always lurked around the corner. Deeper into the forest, he met a squirrel named Hazel, who was busy stuffing her cheeks with acorns. Hey, Hazel. Have you seen the golden acorn? Milo asked. Hazel's eyes widened. The golden acorn? You mean the one guarded by the giggle bushes? Oh no, no, no. You don't want to go there. Giggle bushes. Milo's ears perked up. What's so scary about a bush? Hazel shuddered. They tickle you. If they catch you, you'll be laughing for days. Milo, however, was undeterred. Sounds fun. And off he ran. Sure enough, the giggle bushes were waiting. As soon as he stepped close, the branches wiggled wildly and swiped at him with their leafy fingers. Ahaha. No. Stop. Milo howled, rolling on the ground, laughing uncontrollably. After much struggling, and a lot of laughing, Milo finally wiggled free and darted away, panting. Okay, note to self, no more tickly bushes. At last, after a long trek, he reached the ancient oak tree where the golden acorn was hidden. But, just as he was about to grab it, a booming voice echoed through the trees. Who dares disturb my nap? A gigantic bear, the guardian of the acorn, emerged from behind the tree, stretching with a yawn. Milo gulped. Ah, just a friendly visitor. The bear squinted at him. You don't look very friendly. Okay, okay. I just wanted to see the acorn. Maybe take it for a little spin. The bear chuckled. If you can make me laugh, you can take the acorn. Milo's eyes lit up. Oh, I got this. He struck a dramatic pose. Why did the fox cross the road? Why, the bear asked, raising an eyebrow. Because the chicken was on vacation. Silence. Then, roaring laughter. The bear clutched his belly, shaking the entire tree with his booming chuckles. Fine, fine. Take it, the bear said between laughs. Milo snatched the golden acorn and did a triumphant dance. Yes. I did it. As he skipped back home, he thought about all the tales he would tell. He, Milo the mischievous fox, was now a legend. And, of course, he'd have to find a new adventure soon, because what's life without a little fun? The Dreamland Pajama Parade. The moment Felix put on his favorite star-patterned pajamas and shut his eyes, something magical happened. A soft hum filled the air, and his bed trembled slightly before lifting off the ground. With a gasp, Felix opened his eyes to find himself soaring through a sky filled with floating pillows and glowing, bubble-like moons. He had arrived at Dreamland, a place where bedtime stories came to life and pajamas held secret powers. Welcome, Felix, called a tiny voice. He turned to see a talking bunny in a velvet nightcap, balancing on a cloud. I'm Whimsy, the official guide of Dreamland. You're just in time for the annual pajama parade. Felix grinned. A parade? What's it for? Oh, it's the grandest event of the dream world. Whimsy explained, leading Felix down a staircase made of twinkling stars. All dreamers wear their best pajamas and march through the land, showing off their dream powers. Look. Felix gasped as he spotted a group of children in fuzzy pajamas, bouncing as high as treetops with each step. Another child in silken robes floated gracefully like a feather on the wind, and yet another, wrapped in polka-dotted flannel, created glowing constellations with a mere wave of his hand. This is amazing. Felix said, eyes wide with wonder. What's my dream power? Whimsy wiggled his ears. That depends on your pajamas. Let's see, star-patterned ones. Oh, Felix, you have the power of cosmic skating. Before he could ask what that meant, his feet lifted off the ground. A sparkling silver path appeared beneath him, and with a whoosh, Felix began gliding across the air as though he were ice skating on the stars. He twisted, spun, and looped around glowing clouds, laughing with delight. The parade wove through dream-filled landscapes, past the floating marshmallows, through the river of lullabies, and under the giant moon lanterns that softly hummed bedtime melodies. As Felix skated, he saw a group of shadowy figures standing at the edge of dreamland. They seemed lost, their pajamas dull and faded. "Who are they?" Felix asked Whimsy, slowing his glide. "They're the dream drifters," Whimsy whispered. "They've forgotten how to dream, and now they're stuck between waking and sleeping." Felix felt a tug in his heart. He skated toward them, reaching out a hand. "Come on. Join the parade." One of the dream drifters, a girl in a pale nightgown, hesitated before stepping forward. The moment she did, her pajamas shimmered, turning bright pink with golden stars. She gasped in joy as she started floating, her dream power returning. One by one, the others followed, laughter filling the air as their colors brightened and they twirled into the parade. When the parade finally ended at the Grand Pillow Palace, the King of Dreamland, a sleepy-eyed bear in royal blue pajamas, gave Felix a golden pillow, for bringing dreams back to those who had forgotten. Felix beamed, holding his prize close. But as he blinked, Dreamland began to fade. The stars dimmed, the parade music softened, and soon, he found himself back in his own bed, the first rays of morning light peeking through his window. Had it all been a dream? Then he noticed a golden pillow resting beside him. Felix smiled. He couldn't wait for bedtime. The Lunar Glass Garden. Beneath a sky painted in swirling hues of indigo and silver, hidden beyond the edge of the waking world, lay the fabled Lunar Glass Garden. A place of hushed whispers and timeless wonder, the garden was said to bloom only under the light of the full moon, where petals of translucent crystal glowed with celestial energy. Only those who could hear the song of the stars would ever find it. Iris had always felt different. While others dreamt of ordinary things, she dreamt of voices carried on the wind, of secret melodies woven into the night. One evening, as the world slumbered, she followed the whispers beyond the meadows, through a forest where silver vines curled around ancient stones, until she arrived at a lake that rippled like molten glass. A single stepping stone shimmered in the water's center, and as Iris stepped onto it, the reflection of the moon stretched toward her, forming a glowing archway. Taking a deep breath, she stepped through, and the world changed. She found herself standing in a garden unlike any she had ever seen. The flowers were made of delicate glass, shifting colors as they swayed in an unseen breeze. Trees with silver bark stretched toward a sky where constellations shimmered like chandeliers. A gentle chime echoed in the distance, and a path of glowing dust led her forward. At the heart of the garden stood an enormous tree made of shimmering glass. Its roots pulsed with light, and nestled in its branches were orbs that held echoes of forgotten dreams. As Iris approached, a figure emerged from the tree's glow, a being with eyes like galaxies and robes woven from stardust. "You have heard the song," the being spoke, their voice like a melody woven with time itself. "You have been chosen." "Chosen for what?" Iris asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "To be the keeper of dreams," the being replied. "The garden exists between realms, where the dreams of the world take root. But without a guardian to listen, dreams fade into silence. Will you listen? Will you remember?" Iris hesitated, the weight of the moment pressing upon her. To stay meant leaving behind the world she knew. But deep in her heart, she understood, this was where she belonged. She nodded, and at that moment, the garden seemed to exhale, as if welcoming her home. The flowers swayed in harmony, the glass tree pulsed brighter, and the constellations above realigned. The Lunar Glass Garden had found its new keeper. And so, as the world slept, Iris listened. She listened to the whispers of lost stories, to the echoes of forgotten laughter, to the dreams waiting to be remembered. The garden would never be silent again. The Ocean of Wishes. Beneath the twilight sky where stars dipped low enough to kiss the horizon, there existed a sea unlike any other, the Ocean of Wishes. Its waters shimmered with hues of violet and sapphire, reflecting the dreams of those who dared to whisper their desires to the tide. It was said that once a century, when the moon turned silver, the ocean would grant the wish of one true-hearted seeker. Marin had heard the story since childhood, told in hushed voices by sailors who swore they had seen the ocean ripple with magic. But no one ever spoke of a soul who had returned with their wish fulfilled. Determined to unravel the mystery, Marin set sail under the silver moon, guided only by the pull in her heart and an old map that had been passed down through generations. As her small boat drifted into the ocean's embrace, the air grew thick with enchantment. The waves murmured secrets, and tiny orbs of light danced across the surface like fireflies trapped in water. The deeper she ventured, the more the stars above seemed to align, forming patterns she had never seen before. Then, from the depths, a voice rose. "Seeker of wishes, what is it you truly desire?" Marin turned sharply. The ocean had spoken, not with words, but with feeling, the resonance of 1,000 dreams woven together. Swallowing her nerves, she whispered, "I wish to know the truth of this ocean. To understand its magic." The sea churned beneath her, and suddenly, she was no longer in her boat. She was beneath the waves, yet she could breathe as though air surrounded her. Schools of glowing fish swirled around her, forming spirals of light that illuminated the ancient city resting on the ocean floor. Coral towers shimmered like glass, and floating lanterns guided the way to a grand archway carved with symbols older than time itself. Before her stood the guardian of the ocean, a being made entirely of flowing water, its form shifting between the shapes of creatures that had once roamed the sea. Its eyes, deep and knowing, fixed upon her. "You have asked for truth," the guardian spoke, its voice the lull of the tide. "And so, you shall learn." Marin braced herself as memories not her own flooded her mind, visions of the ocean forming from the tears of the first dreamer, of lost wishes drifting like pearls on the seafloor, waiting for those worthy enough to claim them. She saw the truth: the ocean did not grant wishes as mortals believed. It revealed the path to fulfilling them oneself. When she awoke, she was back in her boat, the silver moon still hanging above. The ocean of wishes had given her not magic, but wisdom. And as she sailed homeward, she smiled, knowing she carried with her something far greater than a granted wish, a destiny of her own making. The waves whispered their approval, and the stars above shone just a little brighter. The Eternal Clockwork City. Far beyond the reach of any map, nestled between the cracks of time itself, lay a city that never slept, a place where the stars moved like gears, where time itself had form, and where past, present, and future existed at once. This was Chronalis, the Eternal Clockwork City. For centuries, only whispers of its existence reached the ears of scholars and adventurers, tales of a place where time was crafted, where those who sought to rewrite destiny could walk among the weavers of time. Many had searched for it, none had returned. Until now. The journey begins. Erin had spent her life deciphering cryptic texts, poring over faded maps, and following the breadcrumbs of legend. A daughter of explorers, she was no stranger to lost cities, but Chronalis was different. It was said to be neither here nor there, existing only when the clock struck the 25th hour, a time that did not exist in the waking world. For years, she chased fragments of myths, until one fateful night, when she stood atop the ruins of an ancient observatory, her compass spinning wildly in her hands. The sky above her shimmered, and then, as the moon eclipsed the sun, a gateway opened before her. Without hesitation, she stepped through. The City of Time. Erin found herself in a vast metropolis of golden brass and glimmering silver, where towering spires stretched into a twilight sky, and gears the size of mountains turned with slow, deliberate grace. The streets pulsed with energy, lined with intricate clockwork constructs that hummed softly as they passed. Time itself seemed fluid here, people moved at different speeds, some frozen in moments, others racing forward like shooting stars. At the heart of the city stood the Grand Orrery, a colossal structure where celestial bodies orbited in perfect harmony, guided by the hands of the weavers of time, keepers of history and architects of fate. Erin's breath caught as she gazed upon them. Clad in robes woven from strands of time itself, their eyes shimmered with the wisdom of countless ages. The test of the hourglass. "Seeker," one of the weavers addressed her. "You have stepped beyond time's veil. What do you seek?" Erin hesitated. She had come for knowledge, for the power to undo the mistakes of the past, to alter the course of her life. But standing before them, she realized the weight of such power. To understand, she finally said. To witness time's truth. The weavers exchanged glances before one extended a delicate, shimmering hourglass toward her. Then you must face the test of the hourglass. Before she could ask what that meant, the world around her fractured. She was no longer in the Grand Orrery. Instead, she stood in the past, her past. The day she had lost her father to the storm, the moment that had driven her to seek the unknown. The pain was as fresh as if it had just happened, but this time, she was not a helpless child. The hourglass pulsed in her hands. She could change it. She could rewrite time. The choice. Tears blurred her vision. She had spent her whole life chasing a way to undo this, to bring him back. But the weavers had shown her the truth. Time was not meant to be unraveled, only understood. With a shaking breath, she turned the hourglass upside down. The past shimmered, then faded. She was back in Chronalis. The weavers watched her, their expressions unreadable. "You have chosen well," one finally said. "To change the past is to break the future. But to accept it is to master time." Erin felt lighter, as if the weight she had carried for so long had finally been lifted. She did not need to change what had been. She needed to embrace what was to come. With a final nod, the weavers stepped aside, and the gears of Chronalis turned once more. The city blurred, dissolving like mist, and when Erin opened her eyes, she was back at the observatory ruins, the first rays of dawn painting the sky. She smiled, knowing that she carried the wisdom of Chronalis within her. And for the first time, she was not lost. She was exactly where she was meant to be. The mirage of the verdant realm. Long ago, beyond the shifting sands of the whispering dunes, there lay a kingdom said to exist only when the moon's reflection touched the oasis of echoes. It was called the Verdant Realm, a land of endless greenery in the heart of the desert, where rivers of silver flowed, trees bore fruit that glowed like lanterns, and creatures long thought extinct roamed freely. Many had searched for it, believing it to be a myth, but none had returned to confirm its existence. Erin, a young cartographer with a heart full of wonder, had dedicated his life to proving that the Verdant Realm was real. He had spent years tracing lost texts, deciphering old songs, and mapping the stars that pointed the way. Finally, on the night when the moon was at its fullest, he stood at the edge of the whispering dunes, holding his breath as the wind carried a whisper through the warm air. "Follow the echo, and you shall see." Determined, Erin stepped forward. The moment his foot touched the moonlit sand, the air shimmered, bending like rippling water. In the blink of an eye, the dunes before him transformed, revealing a lush forest stretching beyond the horizon. Flowers the size of his head swayed in an unseen breeze, their petals humming with a quiet tune. Golden fireflies danced between vines, illuminating stone pathways leading into the depths of the jungle. A city unlike any other lay within the foliage. Towers of crystal entwined with vines stood tall, their surfaces reflecting the constellations above. Bridges made of woven branches connected homes nestled in colossal trees, their windows glowing like distant stars. Waterfalls cascaded down moss-covered cliffs, their streams flowing through the city like veins of light. Before Erin could marvel any further, he heard footsteps. Turning, he found himself face to face with a woman whose eyes shimmered like emeralds. She wore robes woven from the night sky, and her presence carried an aura of something ancient yet gentle. "You are the first in many generations to step into our world," she said, her voice like wine through the leaves. "Why have you come?" Erin hesitated. He had dreamed of this moment his entire life, but now that he stood within the Verdant Realm, he realized he wasn't here for glory or proof. He was here because he longed for something beyond the endless maps and uncharted lands. He longed for understanding. "I wish to know your story," he admitted. "To see what the world has forgotten." The woman's smile was soft, knowing. "Then you may stay, but only until the last echo fades. When the moon sets, southwest too shall this place vanish, as it has for centuries." For what felt like a lifetime, Erin wandered the Verdant Realm. He listened to the songs of the trees, walked among creatures that should have only existed in legend, and read the stories carved into the roots of ancient oaks. He learned that this place was not hidden by magic alone but by time itself, existing in the space between seconds, appearing only to those who truly believed. And then, just as the first light of dawn touched the horizon, the world began to dissolve. The trees faded into golden dust, the rivers turned to mist, and the city became a mere reflection on the surface of the oasis of echoes once more. Erin found himself standing back in the dunes, his footprints the only sign that he had ever left. But clutched in his hand was a single leaf, one that still glowed softly, humming with the song of the Verdant Realm. And so, he returned to the world not with proof, but with a story, one that would be whispered for generations to come, waiting for the next seeker to follow the echo. Echoes of the Vale. High atop the cliffs where the sky met the sea, beyond the known world, lay a hidden rift, a place whispered of in myths, where the living and the forgotten intertwined. It was called the Veil, a shimmering barrier where time folded in on itself, and echoes of past lives drifted like mist across the stones. For centuries, few had dared to approach it, fearing the stories of those who vanished within its light, lost to history itself. But for Kalen, a seeker of lost knowledge, fear was only an obstacle in the path of truth. With only an old map and a heart full of questions, he journeyed across the perilous lands, drawn by the whispers that called his name in the wind. When he finally arrived at the edge of the world, the veil stood before him, a translucent curtain of swirling silver light, shifting like liquid moonlight. It pulsed with energy, an ancient heartbeat echoing through the air. As Kalen reached out, the world around him twisted, and in an instant, he was no longer standing on the cliffs. He had crossed the threshold. The forgotten city. The air was thick with the scent of rain and petrichor, the sky a deep violet streaked with silver clouds. Before him stretched a vast city, its towers built from obsidian and white marble, entwined with vines that glowed like captured starlight. Shadows moved through the streets, figures dressed in flowing robes, their faces shifting between the past and present, their voices overlapping in hushed melodies. A woman stepped forward, her eyes like the night sky, endless and unfathomable. You have entered the city of echoes, where time is neither past nor future, but always. Why have you come? Kalen hesitated. He had come seeking answers, but now, standing among the lost souls of the Veil, he realized he did not even know the right question to ask. I seek the truth of this place, he said. Why does the Veil exist? What happens to those who cross it? The woman tilted her head, as if listening to something beyond his comprehension. The Veil is the boundary between what was and what remains. It keeps the echoes of forgotten history safe from the hands of time. We are its keepers, those who once were, now waiting to be remembered. Kalen felt a chill run through him. And those who enter? She smiled sadly. Some choose to stay, becoming part of the echo. Others leave, but they never return the same. He thought of the legends, the warnings. The stories of explorers who had vanished, their names erased from time. And yet, he could feel the knowledge of ages pressing against his mind, begging to be heard. The choice. Then I must decide, he murmured. The woman nodded. Yes. Stay, and you will know all that has been lost. Leave, and you will carry only a fragment of truth, but you will remain yourself. Kalen clenched his fists. The allure of knowledge was intoxicating, but so was the weight of existence. He did not want to fade into a story no one would tell. Taking a deep breath, he stepped back. The city wavered, the figures dissolving into mist. The veil pulsed one last time before releasing him, and when he opened his eyes, he was once more atop the cliffs, the wind tugging at his cloak. The veil was gone, leaving behind only silence. And yet, in the distance, he could still hear the echoes of forgotten voices, whispering their truths into the wind.